Hello, my name is Jay Garning, and today I will be presenting the fascinating research of Professor Gary Uzzoni's paper, Refugee Flows and State Contributions to Post-Cold War UN Peacekeeping Missions. In Gary Uzzoni's paper, the primary research question is why do states participate in United Nations peacekeeping missions? This current research question arises out of the theories for UN peacekeeping interventions. The primary theories revolve around either the permanent five members of the UN Security Council's interest or the severity of the conflict. Political scientists have thought that the democracies of the West have a normative impulse to provide peacekeeping troops. Also, others have posited that the UN only intervenes in the most severe of conflicts. These compelling theories, though, do not provide a universal logic that accurately predicts where the UN authorizes peacekeeping missions. Dr. Uzzoni proposes a completely different approach that puts the external factors of a conflict to the forefront of the discussion. By studying refugee outflows, the external effects of a conflict become the determinant factor for UN intervention. These externalities, such as the influx of refugees and the subsequent spread of conflict, overshadow the effects of other variables. This new approach could have transformative implications on how the creation and maintaining of peacekeeping missions are understood. To explore this research question, there are multiple variables to examine. The main independent variable is the flow of refugees into another nation. There is then a plethora of other, mostly statistically insignificant, independent variables that are also examined. Some of the other independent variables are factors such as distance from a conflict and whether a democracy is present. These variables are to determine whether refugee outflows are causal and not spurious. The first dependent variable is the participation of a state in a peacekeeping mission. The second dependent variable is the size of that state's contribution to the peacekeeping mission. Each of these two dependent variables capture the most tangible contributions that states make to peacekeeping missions. The first hurdle for most missions is to find states to join the mission. The second hurdle is then to convince those states to supply a healthy and steady stream of personnel. There are two hypotheses used to test the general theory that refugee flows influence state participation in peacekeeping missions. First, that states facing inflows contribute to missions. Second, that the larger the inflows, the greater the contribution to the mission. Both of these hypotheses have a significant implication on the current understanding of peacekeeping contributions if proven to be statistically supported. These pivotal variables all have to be measured accurately to determine the relationship between the variables. The relationship between the variables were mainly tested by using a logical regression to gauge the relationship between the large refugee inflows and the participation in a peacekeeping mission. The logical regression is used to analyze the binary relationship between each independent and dependent variable. This allows for the classification of spurious relationships with each binary relationship when compared to the others. The use of logical regressions also allows for the determining of statistically significant and insignificant variables. The data used to analyze this information was collected using statistics provided by the UN Department of Peacekeeping. These catalogs of troop contributions are prime examples of running records, which is material that is systematically collected over time. The analysis of these running records provided in the article are examples of document analysis. Alongside document analysis of running records was also a review of the current literature surrounding UN peacekeeping missions. This literature is what informed the other independent variables tested as to account for a possible spurious relationship between the dependent variables and refugee inflows. Document analysis is common when testing theories that involve large swaths of government or NGO activities that are heavily documented. Overall, these data collection methods underpin the rigorous measurements that were utilized to test the hypotheses presented in the article. Finally, the findings of this article show support that refugee inflows influences a state's likelihood of participating in a peacekeeping mission. This conclusion suggests that states are more practical in their troop contributions to the UN than they are ideologically driven. This is counter to some normative observations made about UN peacekeeping missions. As UN missions have become more overt in their drive to impart Western ideals, it has not influenced which countries contribute. Democracies and non-democracies show up in relatively similar numbers to peacekeeping missions around the globe. Alongside refugee inflows, factors such as former colonial status and military alliances also had a significant effect on whether a state would participate in a peacekeeping mission. This also lends credit to the current literature on P5 interest in how those members support peacekeeping missions. Overall, The article supports the shift in UN missions towards civilian protections might also correlate to states' concerns about refugee inflows. Multiple important implications, such as the tangible benefits of peacekeeping, can be explored through the lens of who's participating in missions due to this article. Without it, there would be a gap in the understanding of the factors that lead to troop contributions. The major theories of permanent Security Council interest and conflict severity can be further explored by interweaving refugee outflows to the overall academic discussion at issue today.